BigBear.AI is setting up for another major move, and if you want to know what's coming next, then you might want to watch this. It was our entry point here around 365. We sold at $4 here for $400 profit. And if you ever want to watch our daily live trading sessions like we had on Friday, it's a second link down below. We got our Memorial Weekend sale, so it's huge. It's a second link down below. Now, let's take a look. Speaking of StockMate, we got our full report for Big Bear that came out today. This Big Bear AI in-depth insights. They have some really good information that we put together. And one of the things that came as a result of putting together this report on Big Bear is really looking at what has led to their growth and what has built their market cap to this point. So we're going to dive in a little bit here to look at the stock from a pretty long-term perspective and a short-term perspective. You can see we started covering it back here in about November, around $1 a share. At one point, it had surged by about January or February up to $10.50 before selling back down to this $2.50 price point, this support. We have an average purchase price of about $2.80, and we've seen it start to now build this market cap over the last month and a half, 2 months, and it's starting to trend upward again. Now, after we sold for a profit on Friday up here in this green, we actually shortly after saw that it sold back down and brought in some focus here to see it at this support level again at $3.65. So it is possible we get another opportunity to trade Big Bear this week for something like this, about a 15 to 20% swing like we caught on Friday. So when it comes to Big Bear, there's a few things we're going to look at from the market perspective. They're in a growing market, and let's just jump into the report actually so I could give you guys a perspective on this. It shows kind of their progression over the past few years and what's leading to the AI and machine learning applications that they're building and how that's going to impact some things. So when it comes to their market, we can kind of skip through the market caps, some of the contracts. They got a $160 million US Army contract there. You got export and imports, US Air Force. You got defense intelligence agencies, Department of Defense, Homeland Security. You can see some of their customers. You got even the FBI there, as well as Central Security Service. And when you go through it, this is where it starts to get interesting. So representative customers, you got L3 Harris. Now, L3 Harris, usually focuses in the space industry. And then you look at US Army, you can get through here, and I'm actually going to get back to here. This is what I was kind of leaning towards covering in this video. One of the things that positions them well in their market is how they're competing with some very strong companies that are already starting to see massive market growth. You got over here supply chain and logistics. You got Azure, Amazon Forecast they're competing with, Simulate, as well as Siemens, Technomatics, and you also got cybersecurity, so Microsoft Defender or even CrowdStrike. But then you also, this is more where it's starting to see really close proximity to their competitors is Anduril. You got Leidos, Lockheed Martin, especially Leidos, and then you got Palantir up there. Palantir is one of the main ones. So the ones that I find to be the closest: CrowdStrike, Palantir, and Leidos. If you take a look at, for example, Leidos, they do have space, they got space tech, but how many of you guys went through the airport and you've gone in that machine where you stand there and they like run the thing around you and it does a scan of your whole body? So when you go to Leidos, that's actually the technology that's Big Bear is referring to in where they're having competition. So if I don't know if it's specifically aviation. I actually think maybe it would be related to Homeland or intelligence here. So you got, let's see, there it is. So you guys have seen this, the Leidos machine, or even these TSA logistics contracts where you go through and you get scanned, right? Stand there, they say hold still, they goes vroom, and then you're like, all right, I'm scanned, and maybe they pat you down if something looks suspicious. So Leidos is in that industry, right? And they've become, as a result, this is one of their competitors. So we're looking at market here. They've become a $19 billion company, a $20 billion company. Okay. Now they also have some other markets they're in, for sure. They were at the Space Symposium here, sponsored by SpaceX. I got this pass that we got for free. We got to go meet a lot of companies there. There was Seal SQ, the quantum, cybersecurity company. We got to see Redwire, Rocket Lab, and Leidos was one of the companies. So you might say, okay, Will, like that looks cool, but what does that have to do with Big Bear? Well, Big Bear has secured some contracts with TSA and with airports. And if you look at their solutions that they've recently come out with, you take a look at their industries and you go homelands or travel and trade, I think it would be closer tied to where they're at. You do have these TSA and border and airports securities that they've come out with, and essentially biometrics, so threat detection, predictive analytics from all of the millions of people that come in and out of airports. And personally, I've seen this technology used, and it's been used on me when I've gone through the airports, like in Denver, for example. Just like this, they scan your face, it goes through, and they say, okay, no threat detected, most likely, unless you're a sketchy person. And then you have the trusted by. Now, this actually needs to be updated because there's a lot more than just soft point or Delta. There's a lot more. I've seen them at multiple airlines, so that's one thing that maybe they need to update there. Like personally, in person, I've seen them, so I know the market's real. When it comes down to the competitor landscape, they're right there. But then you have them working in defense, homeland security, and that's when they start to introduce the Palantir competition, because Palantir is really in the same kind of level, right? So when it comes to systems, autonomy is key. So a lot of the focus here, you even got drone boats. You have some drone contracts that they've signed. So the software for drones, they're partnered with Palantir. So while they're a competitor, they're also in the same markets. And I think it's over here, some case studies. They also have their AI large language model that helps different companies, whether it's shipyards here, from construction models to simulating the schedules and running through the model, whether there's constraints or labor or facilities, running through the model, and then having timelines, capacity, schedules, laydown maps, all that. Anything the business is really struggling with goes into Big Bear, and it's a large language model that can make that happen. So when you kind of look at the resources that we're considering, right, over in Stockmate and how we're doing some of our research, one of the things that's going to be a key factor as well is that they continue to build their contracts, because I think it was recorded back here with Army that they've expanded 235% growth in their Army account since 2021. So, select competition is Palantir, they got IBM, and that means they're right there as a competitor. That, as if they're at 160 million now, maybe that's more like a $500 million contract in the future. So as they continue to ramp up, they continue to grow. That's kind of what we're looking at as some of the future for Big Bear. So market looks really good. Then we get into some of the analysis, right? We see this recent pullback. From a perspective of Big Bear's price point that it's at now, as we mentioned, it's been at $10.50. It's spent a lot of time consolidating in this level from basically March. You guys see this level, March, resistance, right there, resistance, right, resistance, and that's actually where it is right now. And this is a level at which it's really consolidated from March and then started to have a huge push in April, sold back down, started this bull trend. And it's now pushed back down here to this level that it could very likely act as a support. This previous resistance is starting to act as a support here, which would indicate bullish momentum. Now, when it comes to the next levels, there is that swing, as we mentioned, like the trade we caught on Friday here. Okay. And then there is the longer term look, getting up into these levels that would be the bull case up into about $5. That's a 40% increase. And if we go back here year to date, let's go 1 year, then we start to say, okay, well, hey, what do the previous highs look like? What does some of that look like? Yeah, it's about 100 to 200% increase. So there's a lot of upside there. Now, with the recent moves, I'd say this is a nice, healthy pullback that we recently saw sell down what was about 15% from that $4.20 price point. And so now that it's back down to this level, what we're looking at is the long-term swing looking pretty good. The near term looking to validate this previous resistance, $3.60, as a support again, and start to see that move validate. And if that does happen, most likely we would be trading it in our market open session. So again, kind of selling off, maybe selling off here. And this is kind of a 1 hour candlestick time frame over the last week, where it's trying to really find support on this $3.60 price point. That's where we bought right here. It was literally right at market open. Right here we bought and we rode it up to 410 from 365. Now it's at that 365 again. And so on Tuesday, because Monday market is closed for Memorial weekend here, then we could see maybe that potential swing there. That's what we're looking for. So it's a 15-20% swing. Now, what about hey, Will, what about that $5 to $10 target? Like, what does that look like for projections in the future? Well, a good way to also wrap the analysis, while the technicals look fairly good, kind of near the support, and the news and the contracts have been pretty good, then we look at the financials. And this is where things start to also tie pretty well. You got a market cap of just $1 billion. And you do have a lot of hype articles, like be careful, right? There's going to be a lot of hype articles. They got different things like a lawsuit. Like this company says, have you lost money investing in Big Bear? Come give us a call and we'll help you. You know, there's always stuff like that. There's also the just random investor hype that is not very well educated. Okay. It's just basically just hype, right? So we don't go to that. We go directly to what we know. When it comes down to the market cap, it's $1 billion market cap. The revenue has been up year over year. So it's $34 million per quarter. And that's actually the lowest quarter in the last year. In general, they've had really good quarters, 40 to 43 million a quarter in revenue. Their net income, after paying down some of their recent debts that they had accumulated, and with the new CEO getting hired in quarter one as well, who has previous background in Homeland Security, in border protection, was the acting Secretary of Defense, I believe it was. And then on top of that, had a company, a defense company that was sold to Big Bear at one point. Their new CEO has those connections in that will help with those contracts with the Pentagon or with the Navy or Army or what have you, whether it's the Homeland Security or Department of Defense. All that is going to tie well with their projected future contracts. And so they also mentioned in their earnings call that their revenue that they saw here most likely should have been bigger because they didn't count the revenue that for the contracts that they signed in quarter one that they had not yet received payment for inside of their bank accounts yet for those contracts. So there's some contracts that were still in lieu and they hadn't, let's say the wire hadn't hit their account, and that was something they mentioned in their earnings call. So in other words, it's possible they were very well on track to that, with that increasing revenue from 39 to 41 to 43, and this $34 revenue was just $34 million revenue was just a little small because it hadn't hit their bank account just yet. Net income cutting down there, up 51% year over year. So overall profit margins up about 53% year over year. So financials look fairly good. And then the last kind of financial aspect of what we're looking at here with Big Bear, and personally, like with my long-term positions, I see this as a viable company to be in kind of a future-proof position when it comes to AI and defense in a market that's growing. But outside of that, you have to ask yourself, is it institutional attracting value? We just did this full class yesterday. It was our morning coffee right here, morning investor coffee, which I can leave the link, or you guys can click the first link in the description here. I'll leave it there. It's about an hour and 30 minutes. We go through exactly what it means to have investor attracting value, institutional investor attracting value, and why you want to find companies that will have an institutional holdings in the future, because that means you're getting there before a lot of the flood of the money comes in, right? So when it comes to this stock, we do see some institutional interest. You got BlackRock, you have Vanguard, State Street, as well as Goldman Sachs. There's JP Morgan Chase, Citadel, you got Citibank in here, as well as Bank of America. So, and the Swiss National Group. So there's definitely Charles Schwab there as well. You got the institutional interest. So with those things together, then we get to step 3, which is kind of the profit margins. And what we're looking at here again is this 10 to 15% swing up in these levels of $4. And we want to validate, want to make sure this level holds. Otherwise, we could see a sell back down, and we don't want to get caught in that, right? We want to find some more confirmation, just like we started to see back when we purchased earlier on Friday, is that we see it holding above this EMA, this blue line. It is below that EMA. It's more on the bearish side just in the last day and a half here. But what we're looking at is this move to see it recover. So now we're starting to see, okay, is it going to validate that? That's a 14 to 15% margin for profit. And if we get up to these levels, about a 20 to 30% swing potential for Big Bear. So those are the levels at which we're watching, actually up to a 40% potential if we see that more hyper bullish swing take place. And so we'll see if it can get to those levels, how that market cap builds this next week. Of course, we got the Fed meetings coming up soon that could impact some of the markets, especially with rate cuts potentially on the horizon. So we'll be watching that. Again, guys, if you want that free virtual stock trading class, it's the first link down below. And there's a memorial sale for a virtual stock trading system where you get $350 off with access to StockMate, our daily live trading for free. So the first link down below for that. The second link in the description takes you to StockMate. If you want to join us Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, get access to our different reports like this Big Bear full in-depth report. Also get access to surround yourself with like-minded investors and our daily live sessions, and a free t-shirt when you join lifetime access in the second link down below. Would love to see you there and be a part of your success. So again, if you guys enjoyed and I earned your thumbs up, hit that like button. Do consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.